Welcome, one and all, to the second installment of this look on the weapons in Gears of War. If you missed the first episode, check it out right here. We have already gone over the more standard guns in the series, like the Lancer, Gnasher, and the Hammerburst. Now today, we sink our teeth a little deeper and reach for the specialty weapons in the series. Funky machinations like the Torque Bow, various grenades, and the Bushka, right in that wild limelight when it comes to weapons on Sarah. While less popular, most of these weapons are exceedingly powerful and even more iconic than something like the fucking M-Bar, that stupid rectangle with no fucking sights. So let's get into it. The lore, the function, and the deployment of these weapons in the field, as well as their relation to the Coalition, the Locust, and the UIR respectively. And again, not an expert, but a casual enthusiast of weapons and guns in this series and beyond. We're a bit a ways from what you'd consider normal guns now, but still, if I happen to be getting things wrong, please let me know in the comments below. It's much appreciated. Starting off with the searing rage of the Scorcher, the power of flames in the hands of a single soldier developed by the COG, the Scorcher flamethrower is distinct from most real-life flamethrowers as it uses a dry burn-based fuel like compressed propane, rather than the liquid gasoline or napalm used by soldiers in the World Wars. This means the Scorcher still burns hot, but does not leave behind pools of flame nor burn nearly as long, allowing some Gears and Locust alike to pull away from attacks with their skin mostly intact. And outside of its update in Gears 5, where active reloads do leave fire behind, which should not be possible without liquid fuel tanks like what we had in Flame Grenadiers and Boomers who we'd seen before, the Scorcher is a great alternative for area control that dominates all on the unfortunate side of the barrel. Close quarters or in the darkness of the hollow is where this flame spitter really excels. Psychological extremes of one on the other side of Hell's Gates added in Gears of War 2 in order to combat enemies up close such as Sires, Maulers, and Grenadiers. The Scorcher burns bright and with such great magnificence. Fiery and unimaginably lethal in short ranges, let us delve into and run through the cacophony of grenades offered in the Gears of War series. A unique spin on what grenades you might be used to. Instead of a simple pineapple shape with a pin and latch, grenades in Gears of War are activated by button and thrown off the end of a swung chain, giving the grenades more of a sling-type toss to them, launching them further than one might even be able to pull off with a simple throw out the shoulder, as well as being able to magically stick to surfaces and various creatures when punched with them, leading to some painfully brutal kills. And if attached to a surface, grenades take on what could basically be a motion-based mine, so let's run through these. Lightning Round. The Frag Grenade. Originally coming in a cylindrical form, not unlike the COG smoke grenades, the frag grenade has been used since at least the Pendulum Wars. Later on, Locust iterations would be adopted by just about everyone with hands, being more powerful and plentiful than the old COG manufactured grenades. Long after the death and destruction of the Locust Horde and their weapons in tow, the COG developed an updated form of the frag grenade, taking the best aspects from the Locust bolas and improving upon it. The smoke grenade, as previously mentioned, was developed by the COG, and as you might have guessed, expels a cloud of smoke in a violent blast, making a wide area inaccessible to long arms fire and covering up those within the cloud. The smoke grenade is the only combat-made grenade that deals no damage unless tagged directly onto the enemy. As you might expect, a metal canister popping at point-blank range would hurt quite a lot. Incendiary grenades were fashioned by the Locust Horde sometime after E-Day, a small liquid package ignited by a small flame. They work incredibly similar to a Molotov, but feature the same bola design as the other grenades, exploding on impact and covering an area with slick fuel ignited and burning anyone foolish enough to step into it. Ink grenades are a specialty crafted by the Cantus. Evil, tortured variants of the smoke grenade, the ink grenades are made of actually living creatures, taking infant nemesis, the living bombs from cedars, and jamming them into a grenade casing. When detonated, these baby bombs expel a corrosive cloud of green and black gas that choke the souls within the cloud, while also providing an amount of sight denial to anyone else outside of it. two minor grenades with very small parts within the games but important footnotes for grenades on the whole are the recon and stim grenades. Stim only being in 2 games and the recon being in 1. The latter covering a wide area while scanning and displaying enemies within the zone, making the user of said grenade more accurate and effective against marked targets. The former stim grenade, simply laying out a small cloud of stim gas, a magical healing Novocaine pot that revives allies and keeps your team from dying, unless they've been hit by a mauler or a chainsaw at point blank range, in which case, you're shit out of luck. Shock grenades are developed by the New Age COG, and they do exactly what they sound like, laying out a small circle from the center of the explosion, electrifying and downing anyone within the limit. While the shock grenades are effective and powerful when it comes to downing an enemy, they are incapable of being fatal to someone even when tagged at point-blank range. These are mainly used like the shock enforcer to incapacitate enemies in non-lethal engagements rather than a proper military one. Our final and probably worst grenade on the list, the flashbang, is definitely a grenade. Old age tools before E-Day and sometime during the Pendulum Wars, before even our introduction to the successor of the family chain, we have 2 incredibly wild power tools created by the Carmine Construction Company. Dressed in yellow steel and operating all over Tyrann, even as far as the steps of Mount Kadar, not far off from the construction of the New Hope Research Facility, we have the Dropshot and the Buzzkill. How either of these do anything that can be considered work is far beyond me. Firstly, the Buzzkill is a power saw. Not too strange, but it's not just a saw, but a magazine-fed saw blade launcher. How this tool was meant for anything outside of cutting people in half makes no sense. Firing blades at such speeds that they ricochet off of hard surfaces and rebound to deal great damage in small enclosed areas. The main thing I can put to it is possibly that the tool was not originally designed to fire the blades, and that's more something the New Age COG and the Swarm have done to it. Like perhaps the saw worked like any other saw, but featured an easily reloadable saw blade anticipating many breaks during any one shift of cutting, whatever it is they use to cut with this. But outside of those options, this weapon doesn't make any fucking sense. Now, the cousin to a logger's worst nightmare is the worst idea to anyone who's ever been in a cave. Now, the explosion part isn't the biggest issue here. Dynamite has been used and is still used today in mining operations. But normally, it's planted, set in a specific place and carefully operated, not launched from 100 meters away with the world's most dangerous DeWalt gun. Aside from launching, the Dropshot features a drill bit that points straight down. If you're tunneling in any direction other than where your feet is, how is this supposed to work? It only fires one way. It might be different if the drill bit pointed where the gun does, but it seems so rudimentary specific to the point of being useless in mining operations. Maybe that's why the whole family abandoned mining and decided a military career would be more fruitful. I mean, their main tools work better as weapons of war than actual practical tools anyways, might as well go full send. Don't get me wrong, I love the Dropshot and how it plays, but this is not a power tool, and I don't know how it ever could be. On the opposite spectrum from the Dropshot, however, a well-manufactured device made of steel and human operations, we have another locust weapon of war that uses living ammunition to make your day worse. The Digger. Instead of flying overhead, the Digger does as it implies, firing a little beastie that literally goes nom 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 as it burrows beneath cover and pops up covered in explosives just to go pop in your face. Created by the Locust after being kicked from the Hollow and used by savage boomers, the Digger is a great tool for blind firing and getting enemies removed from cover, especially when you have the high ground to rain squirmy munitions on your foes below. Another favorite of the Locust Boomers is the classic chunk of a launcher, the Boomshot. A wild amalgamation of the Hammerburst and UIR Bushka, the designs mostly stolen after the early fall of Groznia. This might be why the Locust fit the Boomshot with a drum magazine, just like the Bushka uses, regardless of the fact that the Boomshot is a single-shot weapon. Firing what would be comparable to a 60mm grenade launcher of the real world, at least the Boomshot feels like a grenade launcher, more so than the Lancer GL, at least as we talked about in last week's video. A pump-action launcher favored by the dumb Boomer class. The lack of effective iron sights lending to the accuracy that the Boomers inherently show. The Boomshot is wildly a classic, although it is strange that most Boomers seem to struggle when firing this weapon, more so than Delta Squad does. As for that smaller Grozny cousin, the Bushka is very similar and yet so distinct. A similar design, so far as that it's a drum-fed grenade launcher, but the UIR's Bushka fires much less volatile rounds. An emulsion-based payload grants the weapon a greater yield across a wider area at the cost of weaker damage. The UIR's Bushka is one of 2 weapons to survive Grozny and make it beyond the borders of the once proud country following the attacks of the Locust on E-Day. But all things considered, at least the Bushka actually features a usable sight on the front end, relative to the basically fire-and-forget method of operating the Boomshot. Last on this list of war crimes is the kinetic-based crossbow and the most competent weapon designed for the Locust Horde, the torque bow. Loading an emulsion-tipped explosive into a magnetic chamber which spins and tightens around the payload, hence the torque, before releasing and launching the bolt at a target with extreme accuracy across long distances. Bladed arms resembling an archaic bow stretch out from both the top and the bottom of the barrel, serving both as bladed spears for melee and to act as pistons, pulling on the rotating mechanisms within. How an emulsion-based weapon works 25 years after emulsion was removed from Sarah, I'm not sure, but either way, this weapon still shreds through the poor Carmine stuck to the other side of it.
Who plays torque bow tag? Huh? You shoot arrows at people that make them explode.
I know how to play torque bow tag.
Without proper sights, the torque bow is one of the few weapons that is aimed with a laser sight that stretches to show the path of its projectile. What happens when the laser breaks? Beats me. Good luck. The power weapons in Gears of War do exactly as you think they would. They give you power. Many single-shot explosive devices that are perfect for splattering anything in front of you into multiple squishy pieces. While the Boomshot and torque bow weapons aren't the most efficient, and the Scorcher wouldn't work on screen with what it's described to be firing, they are still cool, still iconic, and much better than any M-bar or claw. They fit the world and the factions that they come from. The Locust weapons are competent, but clearly scrapped together. The COG strives to make war crimes more accessible to the average soldier, and the UIR is based on making the fuel source they fought for into ammunition rather than powering their space program. So yeah, pretty much on track. And that is the end of part 2 of the Guns and Gears. I hope you enjoyed. Don't worry, part 3 is still coming, which is going to feature all of our favorite heavy weapons, like the Mulcher, the Troika shit, Mortar, anything that requires, a little extra girth to it. Thank you very much for watching. If you came all the way here to the end, please feel free to subscribe, maybe like the video, what can I do to get you to subscribe to this? Can I sing you a song? Can I be like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, please subscribe to the channel. Please stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.